Forit Credit Union is here to help you build, grow, and dream bigger. Whether you're looking for rewards checking, tools to boost your credit, or just a team that's got your back on your next big move, Forit is with you every step of the way because they believe your dreams deserve a place to thrive. Go to foritcu.org, that's FORRITCU.org, and keep an eye out for a new location opening soon in Gresham's Rockwood neighborhood. Federally insured by NCUA. This episode is brought to you by Mubi, a global streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema. Starting today, you can catch the streaming premiere of The Substance. Demi Moore delivers a career-best performance as an A-lister past her prime, transformed by a mysterious drug into a gorgeous 20-something played by Margaret Qualley. It's a deliriously entertaining and spine-tingling masterpiece, and you can start streaming The Substance and more for 30 days free at Mubi.com/CityCast. Today on CityCast, Portland Congressman Earl Blumenauer is talking to us between sessions to share his thoughts on Portland's new form of city government, what Oregon can do to brace itself for another Trump administration, as well as his next steps as he approaches retirement, and his new role as a senior fellow and advisor at Portland State University. It's Tuesday, November 19th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about.
Great bow tie, Claudia.
I folded it myself.
You're on brand. All you need is a bike pin.
Yes, it's true. Couldn't find that in time. But I want you to know that it did take about 3 YouTube videos to get this right. It was a lot harder than I expected.
Skill building is where you find it.
Well, how are you feeling? Just straight off, just wondering how you're doing.
Well, I've got 50 days left, and I'm feeling very good about a decision I made, 58 weeks ago. It was the right decision then, and it feels even better now. No point in spending a couple years to try and be in a dysfunctional body when I think I can do as much as a civilian on things that I care about.
Yeah, but you're grateful not to be part of that, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I don't think it's the best use of my time. I think there are a whole host of things that I care deeply about that I can make real progress spending time at home and then working with national groups. And we've got a number of things teed up and, just work through them.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what is on your horizon. Having served as a Portland City Commissioner back in the 80s, it's assumed that you might know a thing or two about how our city government works. And I heard part of what you will be doing in your new senior fellow position at Portland State University is helping our city through its implementation of the upcoming charter amendments. So knowing firsthand where the city has come from to where it's trying to go, what do you think are some of the biggest pitfalls that it needs to avoid as these changes get underway?
Well, I think it's important for people, first of all, to just be comfortable with the new roles. What is going to be the role of a city council person at this point? They don't have administrative responsibilities anymore. Mm-hmm. They're kind of representing a district. The city council has some shared responsibility for the city manager, helping the mayor settle in. And frankly, we've got some educational work to do with our citizens. I mean, I think reflecting of the questions they had, the ambiguity, uncertainty, you saw a drop-off of participation for people voting for city council. It's important to help citizens understand what they've got. What does it mean to have 3 people who are going to represent individual districts? Right. Are they going to be working as a block? Are they going to have alignments with other people? I mean, this is a very fluid situation, and I hope that people allow the process to settle down and to learn together, because there are a number of relationships that need to be explored. Where we've got some key regional governments, the Port of Portland, Portland Community College, Metro, uh, TriMet. These are all agencies that are going to play a critical role for the recovery of our community. They have different strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, and these are playing out.
Yeah. One big relationship that I think a lot of people are concerned about now that the city is, you know, changing its infrastructure is its relationship with the county, because in recent years, they've not worked well together, rolling
Right,
out much needed funding and action to
right,
combat, our housing and fentanyl crisis, as
right.
you know. And I was curious, since you've been a public servant and a city councilor in the past, like, is this how it's always been? Or is this strange relationship between the city and county like a newish development?
I think we've had a rockier patch than I ever remember seeing.
Hmm.
But part of what's going on is that there's been some signals from the public that they want folks to play nice. And there's a recognition that all of these regional partners have a role to play. And that's part of what is intriguing for me, but a priority is making sure that it's not just the city and the county, but it is Metro and it's TriMet and the Port of Portland. Portland Community College plays a critical role in terms of the employment pipeline. And these educational institutions like PCC and Portland State are a vital part of the recovery of downtown. Portland State University is 18% of the downtown.
Hmm.
There are about 20,000 people a week who are on that campus. So I see an opportunity and a challenge to make sure that people are appreciative of the roles that can be played and looking for ways to be able to coax more out of these relationships.
Yeah. Well, aside from your leadership in city council, you've also spent nearly 30 years representing Oregon in the House of Representatives. I mean, do you have any thoughts on how this might all shake out? I mean, I'm not just speaking on the national level. I mean in Oregon,
Right,
because
right,
I think it's also pretty safe to say that Trump is not a big fan of Portland.
right,
You've been under GOP
right.
majorities before. Like, do you see anything different happening this time
I don't.
around? Or
I think it's unlikely that we catch a break when they
yeah,
have an opportunity, to go one way or the other. But so much of this is baked in. I mean, these are federal policies. These are things that where there are a number of actors that are a part of it. So I don't think they're going to go out of their way to help us. But I think that there's an opportunity for us to play with the system. We have any number of people in Oregon who have connections nationally with the Republican Party. And we're in the process of sorting out what some of the relationships are. We've got a number of funding proposals in the pipeline that are there for the taking and that have significant implications for not just Portland, but for the Pacific Northwest. So it's taking place in a larger context, and the pendulum swings back and forth. I've watched over the years where we've had variable relationships, in part of political parties or personalities and circumstances. It's why I said it earlier that I think it's important for us to get the new system of government working, look at the relationships, do our part as a community with people who care.
all right, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we return, more with Congressman Blumenauer. Well, what can representatives from these very blue districts, like the one you've represented, Like, what can they do within this political climate to actually affect change when we're in a minority like this?
Well, virtually all the issues that I work on are not partisan. Bike partisanship is one example. I just left a good friend on the floor who was the co-chair of our bike caucus, a Republican from Florida. Work that we are doing with nutrition. The legislation we had that actually we wrote right here in Portland, the National Independent Restaurants Coalition helped write that legislation. I'm very proud of that. And that made a difference for 100,000 independent restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
What we do with food, what we do with agricultural production, what happens with water, safety. I'm going to a reception here on Capitol Hill that is celebrating work we've done with international water and sanitation.
So, what you're saying is that we should be focusing on bipartisan issues.
We should be focusing on things that bring us together rather than divide us. And they tend to be ones that have bipartisan appeal. An example that Governor Kitzhaber uses, that I've heard a number of people relate to, dealing with somebody who has congestive heart failure and repeatedly admitted to the hospital in warm summer days, giving that person a $400 personal air conditioner
Mm-hmm.
paid for itself. And these are things that make sense when you think about it. It's not rocket science, and we have an opportunity for policies to do this.
I feel like that's what keeps getting Democrats in trouble, is that we assume that other people also see the common sense or the reasoning behind a policy. I mean, I'm very optimistic, but I feel like that bipartisan spirit, it just feels like it's constantly crushed, especially whenever the Trump administration is brought up.
Well, yeah, I have been doing this all my adult life, and I've watched the ebb and flow. We've had some troubled times with Republican administrations, but being able to work through it for things that matter and build the coalition because it makes sense, it saves money, and there are lots of groups and organizations that will lend a hand. Governing is hard work, and it's not easy to get people aligned. It's easier to disagree, to yell, to take shortcuts, but that's seldom a formula for success. And having the patience to deal with things that bring us together rather than divide us, to be able to use challenges to solve problems rather than create new ones.
You know, well, let's talk about that real quick. I'm just wondering what you think are three big ideas that Oregon's leaders should consider in the next 4 years. I mean, I know that we statewide, we're pretty blue. We could govern ourselves, pass legislation, but I know some need federal funding.
Well, a lot of what we need to do does not require huge appropriations. I mean, we've got some real challenges with the development in the flame zone. We're still allowing people to build in the areas that we know are going to burn.
Mm-hmm.
We allow some people to build in areas that we know are going to flood. I mean, I've been working on this on the federal level for years. Nature bats last, and we cannot will ourselves against some of the fundamental facts in terms of development, in terms of water. What happens with climate change is going to play out with the water equation. And we're seeing some things happening here that I think are very exciting. The first salmon in the Klamath River in over 100 years. We took down those dams, and it's changing that ecosystem dramatically and keeping our commitments to Native Americans. We're starting to keep our 150-year commitment under treaties that we didn't honor. starting to move to deal with that. Um,
Yeah.
I think these are profound. These are all things that have been teed up. These are things that
That you're
I
saying we could focus in the next 4 years is what
I
you're
think
saying.
these are things that are ripe for action.
Yeah. Well, could I ask you just this is an anxiety question that's been rattling around in specifically our group.
Okay.
Um, we've been doing a lot of shows about, disaster preparation because
Yeah.
the Cascadia earthquake, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not an if, it's a when.
It's a win.
And so I brought up Trump not particularly being a big fan of Portland, our area. And the big fear is that if a major disaster were to happen, that federal aid doesn't come through. I mean, is that a silly anxiety?
No,
Is
I mean,
that
Donald Trump demonstrated his disdain for people of Puerto Rico, and they were last in line, not well served. We've seen in California, he was withholding federal aid because the forests were burning, and he was trying to hold the state of California responsible. But it was a federal forest issue. Um, yes, there are areas that they can make things harder for us.
Mhm.
But as a practical matter, this has tremendous implications for the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of businesses that are involved. I mean, I'm not sanguine. I mean, I mentioned I could see not catching a break from the Trump administration, but I think there are limitations on that. There are checks with the courts, and there are other interest groups that care deeply about this. I mean, there are insurance companies, there are construction, there are people lined up to deal with this. And it's very important that we do not politicize disaster relief.
Yeah.
Uh, the number one infrastructure expenditure that we're going to have for the next 10 years is going to be the recovery and the costs of natural disasters. We
Right.
will spend more money on that than any other area of infrastructure. But the people in the bureaucracy are doing the best they can. I think there's been some real improvements that have been made, and there's a sense of professionalism, and there's more public attention to this because nobody wants to have people who've had their homes destroyed, their families displaced, um, to have this taken out on them.
Right. Well, we're being told that you need to wrap soon, is what I'm being told. So, is it possible I can ask you just one more question before we wrap?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well,
We're not. They've adjourned. What you heard in the background is adjourning. So I have a few minutes if you need them.
okay, great. I have possibly just a bit of a heavier question, which is what are you going to do with all your time now? We're wondering if you have hobbies lined up. We have a few suggestions for you, but
Ah.
I am curious though, I mean, I know you're going to keep busy. I know you're going to keep busy. There's no way you're just going to take up painting and that's that. But have you considered
Oh,
any
yeah.
new
I mean,
hobbies?
well, first of all, um, when you indicate that you're not going to run for reelection,
Hmm.
everybody has an idea about what should happen with your life.
Oh, is that so?
Really, I mean, and they also become very nice to you. I mean, I get some sort of lifetime achievement award twice a week, 3 times a week. They're very nice to you when you're not going to be around anymore.
Why is that?
But they're free with their ideas and suggestions, and I'm
Okay.
I'm I'm listening to that. My family has determined that our operating mantra is going to be family,
Hmm.
friends, fitness, and fun.
Okay. With
I
that, pickleball. People seem to love this sport. I could see you completely owning a court if you were to go there. The other is, and this is just for me because I think this visual would be amazing, and I could see maybe collaborations here. Bonsai. just you torturing little trees into beauty. And I feel like seeing your little trees at the Japanese garden, it would be amazing. So think about that. Just something you have complete control over.
Well, you've mentioned two things. One
Okay.
is a number of family and friends are obsessed with pickleball.
Okay.
I confess for the first time publicly that I've never played it. And I plan on changing that in the new year because family and friends enjoy it. And it's something that a geezer baby boomer like me can probably contend with. And I feel strongly that there's a role to play in terms of the natural world. I don't know about bonsai, but as you may know, I've spent a lot of time working with the nursery industry in Oregon, which is our number one agricultural product, with the wine industry. What we're going to do in terms of trying to get the most out of being able to grow healthy food and involve more people in it. And I think that this is one of the ways that Portland is already renowned for its food culture. And what we're seeing with men and women who want to farm, I mean, it's been terrific. And these are things that I think we all ought to spend more time and attention on. And I plan on maybe helping a little bit.
In a cannabis field, I can totally see it too. Farmer Blumenauer.
You're having too much
Just
fun with this.
No, thank you so much, Congressman Blumenauer, for your time, for your service, for your dedication, and also for your words. We really needed to hear that.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation.
Well, that's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.